All right, on the bench, I have transmission out of it's probably about a 2015 Toyota RAV4. And this is the U760, which is a 6-speed front-wheel drive, based on a front-wheel drive, but this is an all-wheel drive. Okay, this actually is from another shop that a friend of mine works at that called me and asked me if I can help them out because they're having trouble figuring out what the problem is. And the problem is in noise. So I get a call, and I know this guy, it's probably since the 90s. And at any time he has a little bit of trouble, I says, no problem, just give me a call, I'll see if I can help you out. So this transmission came in with the noise, 100% coming out of the transmission. I did the overhaul, and it still had the noise, same noise. So he doesn't, really know what goes on the bench because he's up in the front. So, I was talking to the builder, and he says, I found clutches flaked off. I figured it was kind of sounded like almost a clutch squawk, but I found clutches flaked down and nothing. I figured that was it. We got it. Did have a lot of miles on it. So I said, okay, what did you change? He said, we did a case, because on these U760s as well as the U660s, like in the Siennas with the bigger engine, there's a bearing right in the center, and the race is staked into the case, and what happens is from normal wear and tear, the race starts to spin, and it's not supposed to spin. Sometimes it even moves in and out. But he said, we got a case, so I know that's good. Banner kit, which is overhaul kit, pistons and clutches, valve body. They said they got a valve body, probably reasonably priced, so they got it from the dealer. Converter, filter, they do it. They're driving it. They said it shifted perfect, and all of a sudden on a 2-3 shift, you hear the zzz noise. And, I believe that's what the problem was. So, they're not really sure. Obviously something may have been missed. So they called me up, and I says, well, don't pull it out yet. I want to drive the car. I want to scan it. I want to drive it. So in the meantime, I'm looking up in my manual what clutches are on in third gear, because the noise happens on the 2-3 shift. And the B3 clutch comes on the 2-3 shift. The B3 clutch also comes on in reverse. I said, do you have a noise in reverse? They never heard a noise in reverse. All right, so we're gonna drive it. So I'm driving it, and I don't hear anything. The freaking thing is shifted beautiful. So all of a sudden I stop, I put in reverse, and I hear, like a noise. And it's hearing that at a standstill would totally eliminate a clutch squawk. But as soon as I heard the noise, I knew what it was. I said, there's a clutch running around a hub, so something is not in. But he says the unit went together perfect. I said I had no spaces, everything turned, so nothing he said it can't be out. I said, well, there's a clutch. That noise is a clutch running around a hub. Not sure why, but that's the noise, 100%. And then all of a sudden, as I'm driving it, zip, I hear it on the 2-3 shift. All right, so I say, pull the unit out whenever and bring it here and let me see. So I know I'm concentrating on the B3. At this point, they just want me to look at it. So I know I'm concentrating on the B3 clutch, which is right on top here. So I split it open. I pull the pump assembly out, which is the B3 on top, the B1 on the bottom, and right away I see what's going on. So there is the clutch, this top clutch that goes on the top here. I'm going to give you a close-up, was running around. This is the old hub, was running around. And that's the noise, 100%. So I just want to show you what I found and why that clutch was running around the top. Now on these U760s, they don't bust up as bad as the U660s, but this thing probably has 150,000 miles on it, and things get worn out. but nothing, you know, no parts were broken, no gears were broken, but things get worn out. It may look good by looking at it, but it's no good. Simple as that. So I want to get a little closer and I want to show you what I found. I'm going to take this back apart again because it's only the top clutch here, and I want to put this setup back in versus this setup and show you the difference. I figured I'd just make a video of it because it was you know, an interesting thing, and I thought it would be good in case, you know, you guys ever out there work on these U760s and have a similar problem, or even know what to check when these transmissions are apart. All right, so let me get a little closer, and I'm going to take this back apart again. You know, just take the top clutch out, take it apart again, and then we're going to kind of compare the two planetaries, and I'm going to show you what I found. All right, so just give me 1 second here. I'll get a little closer. All right, so real quick, let's just pull this B3 clutch out. We're going to take this snap ring out here. Okay, take the plate out. This is the new friction that I had put in because I see what's going on here. I'm going to take the clutches out, and I'm just going to turn them over so I know how they go back in. Okay, here is the ring gear. Here is the planetary gear. So I swapped over, you know, I had them get me this setup because I knew what I needed, you know. I knew what clutches were in. I took it apart, then I called them. I says, get me that and have it sent here. So that was done. Okay, so this here I swapped from here to here. All right, so let me actually bring this down so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. All right, let me take this cover off. So we have two planets that are the same height, okay, but one thing that I did notice is we have some markings here. So it's almost like the ring gear was hitting here, which was proved my theory for something being worn out. Okay, now I have this bearing is much higher than where the step is, you know, on this planetary. And this bearing is much lower where this step is on this planetary. All right, so now we're going to take these off here. This will go here. This one will go here. All right, let me see if I can just kind of zoom in here. All right, so this planetary, you know, when you look at it, you know, you tend to maybe look at the gears. You tend to look at the gears to make sure the gears aren't broken, make sure the gears aren't rocking. But the problem here, when I saw that, I said something is 100% worn out. All right, you see this huge lip here? And there's really nothing here. There's a huge lip here, so this thing is just, from this bearing spinning, this thing just got totally worn down. And this is what it should look like. There's really no lip here at all. You know, it's a little tiny one. This is a good used part. So it's certainly 10 times better than what it was, but it'll work. And you can see there's no markings here at all. Okay, and this is way worn out. This compared to this. So this, when you put this bearing on, and you put this on, okay, so I took this setup out, which is the set that's going to be used. I took that out. I'm going to put the old set back in. I had the camera in the wrong position, so I'm just kind of doing this over again. Okay. So now we have everything in place, and now let's put the clutches and seals back in, and I'll show you what's going on here. Okay, so this. Here. Okay, now I'm going to put a steel, and then we got to put still another clutch. And when you put this clutch in, look what happens. That's the noise that we're hearing. Okay? Now, you see how low that is, so let's take this back out. Just take this out. Let me get this out here again. We're gonna put this back here. All right, let's do this. So we'll put this in place. I'm gonna put our bearing in place. Here is our. Okay, there's also a race that I took off of the ring gear on the front, and it goes there. I just don't want to forget to put it in place. So we're going to put this back in, and then we're going to take a look at it again. Okay, now I'm going to put the last clutch in, and you'll see it's tight. There's no way that that thing is coming out. And then I put this in, put your snap ring on, so the opening is here and here, and she's ready to go together. So the noise was, let me just bring it down again. Noise was this planetary being so worn down that this ring gear sat lower, and you can see here's the marks from the clutch running around. Again, as soon as I heard the noise, I said there's a clutch running around. There's something is not in. And this thing is way worn down. So that's something to look at, you know, when you're doing these. And these U760s, well, the hard parts really aren't that bad, not compared to the U660s, but, you know, definitely this stuff has to be checked, especially when you see marks here, like something's running around. This thing must be pretty low. You know, either the bearing is flat or the thing is worn out, and in this case it's worn out. Okay. So that is that. So what I'll do now is I'll bring the transmission a little closer, and I'm just gonna put the pump back in. We're gonna put the diff back in, and then probably just seal this thing up tomorrow morning, because I got something going on. I got some people coming to my house, so I gotta get home. Why are they coming to my house? To drop off a car that I gotta bring in tomorrow. So I want to just chit chat a little bit while they're there. All right, so what I want to do, put some grease there. And just grease everything in real good to make sure nothing comes out of place because this whole setup has to be turned over and put in place. And sometimes this thing, you know, may be loose, come out a little bit. Your washer could just grease everything in real good on this section because of what has to be done. All right, so let me just get set up for that. I'll go over a seal that's in place. I'll show you a seal. We'll put this in place, tighten it down, put the diff in, and then I'll just finish this thing up in the morning. All right, so just give me a few minutes. I'll be right back. Okay, so we have a rubber seal here that's going to go in between the case and the pump. And then we have another seal here, a thick rubber O-ring that goes here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to put a little grease on this race, a little on this bearing here. And the whole thing really just got to spin this sun gear, you know, down in there, and we got a couple dowel pins, and it'll sit flat, and we can put the bolts in. So should go right in, no problem. Okay. Okay. I want to make sure that it's actually sitting flat. You don't really want to force anything down with bolts. You just want to give it a couple of taps. You can hear that's hitting solid, so we are good to go. All right, so here is another seal. Looks like that. All right, so this one, scoop a little up there, and we'll put that seal right there. That, of course, will go in between the pump and the bell housing. All right. And we have our pump O-ring here. Put that in place. And then our pump bolts. And then I just used the silicone. I'll put a bead of silicone here. There is no gasket. Put the cover on, again with the dead blow hammer, get it down flat onto the dowels, and then we put the bolts in there. So let's just run those down and then we'll torque them. All right, I'll find my 12. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, let me see. Give me a few minutes. Let me see if I can actually find in my book the correct torque spec for these so you know what the correct one is. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, so the correct torque spec for these is 17 foot-pounds. Oops, this thing just shut off on me. I was actually going to say 18. But I wanted to make sure, but it's 17. So let's just start here. Okay. Okay, this is good. Okay. All right, so that's good. This turns. Now the clutches are a little tight now because the clutches are wet, but this turns. You know, you should be able to turn this with your hand, which I can. You know, if it's very tight, you can't turn it, then there may be a problem. All right, and then diff goes right into place like that. So the only thing left to do is the top cover, which I'm not going to do now. But again, going to put a bead of silicone here, all around it. Put the top cover on. Make sure it's down flush. You know, tighten the bolt here, 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 and here. Make sure everything is tight. And then go ahead and run them down. And I will let you know the torque spec on that in 1 second. Let me look at that too. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's move this aside here. Just want to show you something on this bell housing because there's different torque specs. So around all the outside here and here up to here is 23 foot-pounds, and they want these with blue Loctite and 17 foot-pounds. They say this is a more critical area, maybe that can warp or something, so they want some Loctite put on it, and these at 17 foot-pounds and the rest at 23. Okay, again, no gasket, so some silicone's gonna go there. And we'll do that tomorrow. Not a big deal, just gonna do that, put the bolts in, run them down lightly, then torque them to how they're supposed to be. I got some Loctite I'll put on these just how they want, and I'll get this thing finished up and get it back to them. So that is all. Again, it's either a 14 or a 15 RAV4 U760. The complaint was a noise on the 2-3 shift and also a noise in reverse, which I did here. And what did we find? Let me bring this down. We found that Planetary didn't have any broken gears, but we found this in here was way worn out. Forget it, this thing is bad, way worn out. And again, you can tell to a certain extent because of the marks here. Okay, you see some witness marks there, you know something is rubbing, and it shouldn't be. And if this, you know, first thing I thought this bearing's collapsed, but I says, nah, that can't be, because how can you miss that? You know, you turn this thing, this bearing is fine. And then when you look at this and you see how bad it is, I says, wow, this thing is way worn out. So that was the problem. This thing should be 100% now, because again, when I drove it, it shifted flawlessly. Fantastic. All right, and there is the clutch that I'm just going to give it to him. You know, could you use this thing again? I'm sure you could because it's fine on here, but I don't like to do that. I wanted to put a new one in. And that's it. I thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you next one.